The chamber of the Galactic Council was a cathedral of arrogance. Marble-white pillars spiraled upward toward a dome lit by shifting constellations, each star a reminder of who held sway over which corner of the galaxy. Delegates of dozens of species filled the tiers, their robes and armor gleaming beneath the ethereal glow. At the center stood High Chancellor Vorkesh, cloaked in obsidian silk, his scaled brow ridged with the confidence of a predator certain of its kill. "Humanity," Vorkesh declared, his voice a deep rumble carried across the chamber by resonance amplifiers, "is a curiosity that mistook persistence for strength. Their fleets are pitiful shadows of true military power. When war comes, their resistance will collapse in hours." A ripple of laughter coursed through the hall. Amphibian delegates croaked in mockery, insected senators clattered their mandibles in rhythm. The laughter wasn't only ridicule, it was dismissal. At the far end of the hall, the human ambassador stood stiff against the wave of scorn. Jonathan Hale, a thin man in a plain dark suit, his face pale but his jaw rigid, spoke above the din. "Earth seeks peace. We have honored treaties, paid our tributes, and abided by council law. Why push us to the brink of war when—" Vorkesh cut him off with a flick of his clawed hand. "Because your kind grows restless. Expansionist. Dangerous. Better to end your rise now than suffer your insolence later." He turned to the assembly. "Is it not so?" Agreement echoed like thunder. A few delegates shifted uneasily, but none dared speak against the Chancellor. Hale's words died in his throat. He was not silenced by volume, but by futility. The Chancellor's lips peeled back in a smile. "When their fleets stand against ours at Sirius Gate, their end will not require days. Not even one. Within hours, the humans will be scattered wreckage." The laughter swelled again, louder, crueler. Thousands of kilometers away, in Earth's orbiting command citadel, Commander Elena Drake watched the transmission in silence. The glow of the Council's feed reflected in her steel-gray eyes. Around her, officers shifted in their seats, some seething, others pale. "Ours," one captain muttered bitterly. "That's generous." Drake's hand tightened into a fist on the armrest. She didn't raise her voice, but her words cut through the room. "They think we'll fold because we don't match their size. They've forgotten wars aren't measured in hull tonnage." Her staff looked at her, expectant, fearful, determined. She stood and moved to the center of the war table. A hollow map blossomed before them, the Sirius Gate rendered in luminous detail. A massive wormhole station hung there like a jewel, surrounded by shifting asteroid fields. Opposite sides of the gate pulsed with alien fleet markers, red, vast, and innumerable. On the other side, far fewer blue markers, Earth's task force. "Our ships are leaner, faster," Drake continued. "We've tested maneuver algorithms they've never seen. We've trained our crews for losses, for improvisation. They don't understand us because they've never had to fight like us." Captain Rees, a broad-shouldered veteran with a scar along his cheek, leaned forward. "Still, we're outnumbered 3-1. Maybe more." "Outnumbered?" Drake's gaze hardened. "That's a description, not a destiny. They expect us to fight them on their terms. We won't." Another officer, younger, more hesitant, asked, "Do you really believe we can hold, Commander? Against dreadnoughts?" Drake let the silence stretch until the weight of the question settled. Then she spoke evenly. "I don't believe we can hold. I believe we can win." The room stilled. She expanded the map, focusing on a cluster of asteroids around the Sirius choke point. Small signals pulsed there, invisible unless one knew to look. A secret prepared in plain sight. Her lips curved faintly. "They'll never see what's waiting for them." Ruiz allowed himself the ghost of a grin. The younger officer's face brightened with realization. "They predict our end in hours," Drake said. "I intend to end theirs in minutes." That night, Drake stood alone at the viewport of her quarters. Below, Earth turned slowly, a glowing marble swirled with clouds. She remembered the first time she had stepped into space, a cadet with wide eyes, staring at the stars as if they were eternal. She had learned since then how fragile ships could be, how quickly fire could consume hope. She remembered colonial convoys ambushed by pirates, settlements bombarded by opportunistic raiders while the council looked away. She remembered the funerals, the lines of grieving families who whispered the same question again and again. Why didn't anyone come to help? That memory was a wound, and wounds had ways of hardening into armor. Her calm buzzed softly. The face of Ambassador Hale appeared, weariness written into every line of his expression. They laughed, Elena. Laughed as if we were children playing at war. Drake's eyes didn't leave the planet below. Let them laugh. Their laughter dies first. You think we'll convince them otherwise? No. She turned at last, her gaze cold and unwavering. We'll show them. The council chamber emptied after the session, the echoes of scorn lingering in its halls. Vorkesh lingered, his talons trailing across the polished floor. His aide approached hesitantly. Chancellor, if the humans resist longer than expected. They won't. Vorkesh's eyes glowed with contempt. They've confused desperation for strategy. They have no fleets worth calling fleets, no weapons that could rival ours. Their extinction will be efficient. The aide bowed and said nothing more. But in his silence hung the faintest trace of doubt that would later grow into fear. In the command citadel, preparations moved into final stages. Engineers fine-tuned guidance systems, gunners ran endless drills, and pilots rehearsed maneuvers until exhaustion blurred their vision. Each knew what was at stake: their homes, their families, their species. Drake walked the corridors, her presence steadying nerves wherever she passed. She wasn't a woman of speeches but of iron certainty. She didn't need to shout to be believed. Her officers drew strength from the calm in her stride, the steadiness in her voice. In the hangar bay, she paused before a squadron of pilots. One of them, Lieutenant Arya Lin, saluted sharply. Commander, Lin said, they think we're fragile. Drake returned the salute. Then let's remind them what happens when you corner something fragile. The day of departure arrived. Fleet engines ignited in synchronized thunder, blue trails stretching like brushstrokes across the void. From Earth, millions watched their ships vanish into the dark. Drake sat in her command chair aboard the flagship Resolute. The stars shifted as the fleet aligned toward Sirius Gate. Her officers awaited her word. She looked at each of them, then spoke with quiet finality. They think hours. We'll need minutes. Engage. The fleet leapt into hyperspace. The Sirius Gate loomed like a wound in the fabric of space. Its swirling vortex shimmered with blue fire, framed by an ancient station whose architecture dwarfed human engineering. Around it, the Council fleet stretched in every direction, towering dreadnoughts with hulls like mountains, cruisers bristling with weapons, swarms of fighters drifting in precise formation. Their sheer mass seemed to crush the void itself. From the observation galleries above the chamber floor, Council delegates gazed through live feeds. The atmosphere was celebratory, as if they were about to watch an execution. On the bridge of the Resolute, Commander Elena Drake studied the tactical display. Human ships blinked in blue, their numbers small and clustered, like minnows swimming into the maw of leviathans. Her officers watched her, waiting for the first order. Captain Rees broke the silence. Chancellor's fleet is fully deployed. They want us crushed in plain sight. They'll get sight, Drake said evenly. But not what they expect. Her voice carried no trace of nerves, only certainty. It steadied the crew more than shields or armor could. Signal all captains, she continued. Formation Delta 7. Scatter pattern on my mark. Alien dreadnoughts opened fire the instant humans entered the battle space. Streams of energy slashed through the dark, bright arcs that lit the void like thunderstorms. A human frigate caught in the initial barrage vanished in a sphere of flame. Gasps erupted across human comms. Alien observers roared approval. Drake didn't flinch. Mark! The fleet scattered like shrapnel, each vessel weaving into unpredictable trajectories. Enemy targeting arrays, calibrated for large, predictable formations, struggled to adjust. Human frigates darted between gaps, using micro-jumps to slip behind firing arcs. On the Council flagship, an alien admiral sneered. Erratic. Desperate maneuvers. They'll exhaust themselves in minutes. But his smugness faltered as 3 of his cruisers erupted in fire, victims of synchronized strikes timed to slip through the pauses between volleys. On Resolute, Lieutenant Arya Lynn tracked the chaos from her console. They're struggling to lock us, Commander. Gaps forming across their flank. Exploit them, Drake ordered. Target support ships first. Reese grinned, teeth bared. Death by 1,000 cuts. Alien broadcasts filled open channels. Some mocked, others grew uneasy. You scatter like frightened vermin, one commander barked. Drake opened her mic, her voice calm, razor sharp. Funny thing about vermin, we survive everything you throw at us. Silence answered her. The enemy closed ranks, embarrassed by her defiance, but their cohesion faltered. Human corvettes launched precision salvos at supply carriers and comm relays, severing lines of coordination. Small victories, but victories that mattered. On the council chamber's dais, Vorkesh leaned forward. His confident smile had thinned. Show me their losses, he snapped. The display shifted. Human icons were fewer now, yes, but the alien fleet had sustained unexpected wounds. Entire wings blinked out of existence, crippled by precision strikes. One Insector delegate clicked nervously. Chancellor, they are adapting. Vorkesh's eyes narrowed. No. They delayed the inevitable. Back in the thick of battle, alarms flared across the Resolute's bridge. Shields cracked under a heavy strike, sparking across panels. Drake braced herself against the impact. Report! Minor breach in Section 12, contained, Lynn answered quickly. Shield matrix regenerating. Drake gave a curt nod. Keep them focused on us. Feed our flankers openings. She projected confidence even as exhaustion tugged at her crew. She knew they couldn't survive a war of attrition, but survival wasn't the plan. Captain, Reese said quietly, we're bleeding, but so are they. At this pace, Drake finished for him. We'll run out of time. Which is why we won't fight at this pace. Her eyes flicked to the tactical overlay, highlighting the asteroid belts scattered around the gate. The hidden signals pulsed there, faint but steady. Humanity's gamble lay waiting. She tapped her console, transmitting encrypted instructions to dormant units buried inside those rocks. The acknowledgement ping returned, unseen by alien sensors. She leaned back. Hold them just a little longer. Minutes dragged like hours. Alien barrages intensified, a relentless tide pressing against the human line. Another corvette vanished, then a destroyer. Drake forced herself not to linger on the losses. She kept her gaze locked on the larger board. Finally, Reese murmured, almost reverently, They're in position. Drake rose from her chair. Her voice was steady, but something sharp glinted beneath it. Activate the array. In the asteroid field, hidden panels slid open. Concealed within the rock, humanity's true weapon came alive, massive rail cannons, coiled with power. Each one targeted with the precision of adaptive AI, calculating trajectories across light seconds in the blink of an eye. For years, humans had mined asteroids in secret, converting them into gun platforms. A desperate gamble, too costly to reveal unless the moment demanded. That moment had arrived. Cannons charged, Lynn reported, all creeping into her voice. Fire! The first shot blurred across space faster than light could follow, a relativistic slug that tore through a dreadnought's bow like paper. The alien Titan split in two, its detonation blooming like a small sun. The council chamber erupted in shocked cries. Delegates leaned forward, disbelief twisting their features. A second slug fired. Another dreadnought, proud and ancient, folded in on itself before vanishing in silence. The rail batteries continued, each strike obliterating ships once thought invincible. The aliens' numerical superiority, their pride, their arrogance, all undone in flashes of annihilation. On the Resolute, Reese whispered, In God's name. Drake's face remained impassive, though her eyes gleamed with grim satisfaction. Not God. Us. The alien fleet panicked. Formations shattered as commanders shouted contradictory orders. Some vessels tried retreating toward the gate, others charged recklessly, desperate to silence the hidden guns. But human ships blocked their path, exploiting the chaos with coordinated strikes. In less than 15 minutes, half the enemy fleet lay in ruins. The council chamber was no longer laughing. Delegates watched in horrified silence as their invincible dreadnoughts died faster than they could speak. Vorkesh rose, his voice a roar of denial. "This is impossible! They cannot!" But he was drowned out by the sight of another flagship tearing apart on the display, its remains scattering across the void. On Resolute, the battle's momentum was irreversible. Human casualties mounted, but victory surged closer with each passing moment. Drake kept her voice steady, every command deliberate. "Redirect cannons to capital ships. Fighters, mop up stragglers. No mercy." "Yes, Commander." The crew moved with precision, no hesitation in their actions. They knew history was being written in that hour, perhaps in those very minutes. Alien calms filled with desperation. Shields failing. "We cannot withstand. Retreat. Retreat." Drake listened, silent, letting their fear echo across the void. Then she gave the final order. Crush their command ship. Rail slugs slammed into the alien flagship. Its shields flared, failed, and its armored spine cracked. Explosions ripped across its decks. Flames spilled into vacuum. In seconds, the vessel was nothing but wreckage drifting in the dark. The once proud Council Armada was broken. What they had predicted would take hours had unraveled in minutes. On the Resolute's bridge, silence hung heavy. The crew stared at the tactical display stunned. Then Ruiz exhaled, a laugh of disbelief and triumph mingled together. Drake did not smile. Her voice remained level, carrying across the calm. Victory confirmed. Begin salvage and rescue for survivors. Secure the gate. Only then did she allow herself to sit, her shoulders heavy with the cost, but her eyes fixed on the stars with unwavering resolve. The silence in the council chamber was heavier than any roar of battle. Where laughter had filled the air only hours before, now the delegates sat rigid, eyes wide, mandibles still, gills frozen. The live feed hovering above the dais showed the smoking remains of dreadnoughts drifting through the void. Human ships darted among the wreckage, not scavengers but victors, steady and unyielding. High Chancellor Vorkesh's claws dug into the armrest of his throne until the stone cracked beneath him. His voice, once rich with authority, trembled with rage. "This is a trick. A manipulation of sensors. Our fleets are not. But the display did not lie. Slug trails still glowed in fading arcs. Explosions still rippled across the dark. The armada of the Arkal Dominion, his armada, was in ruins. Across the chamber, Ambassador Jonathan Hale rose slowly. His plain suit contrasted with the elaborate robes around him, but no one laughed now. He spoke clearly, his voice amplified not by technology but by the sheer gravity of truth. "You predicted our end in hours. We needed less than one." Whispers surged among the delegates. Some stared at Hale with new respect, others with fear, a few with envy. The balance of the chamber had shifted irrevocably. Vorkesh slammed a clawed fist down. "Silence! You think this one engagement defines strength? Humanity will burn. This proves nothing but desperation." Hale did not flinch. "Desperation? Perhaps. But desperation armed us with innovation, coordination, and resolve you cannot comprehend. You call it weakness. We call it survival. And survival has made us stronger than you imagined." Aboard the Resolute, the battle's aftermath unfolded. Fires burned in shattered hulls, escape pods drifted silently, and wreckage floated in every direction. Human crews scoured the field, rescuing survivors where possible and marking debris fields for salvage. The adrenaline of victory gave way to exhaustion and grief. Commander Elena Drake stood at the bridge's viewport, arms crossed. The tactical screen still glowed with the remnants of combat, but her eyes were on the silence beyond. Every victory had a cost, and she knew the names of ships that would not be returning. Status? She asked. Lieutenant Lin's voice was soft but steady. 70% of the fleet intact. Losses heavy, but acceptable, given the scale. Enemy? Destroyed or fleeing. No organized resistance remains. Rees leaned forward on the table, shaking his head. In minutes, Commander. Just minutes. They thought we'd crawl, but they never expected this. Drake exhaled slowly. They never understood us. They still don't. On the Council's secure channels, chaos erupted. Delegates screamed for explanations, for reassurance, for someone to tell them that what they had witnessed wasn't true. Alliances fractured in real time. Some demanded an immediate armistice with Earth, fearing retaliation. Others threatened to withdraw from the Council altogether. Vorkesh shouted above them, his voice hoarse. This chamber will not bow to primitives! But his words rang hollow. The image of burning dreadnoughts behind him stripped them of weight. For the first time in decades, his authority cracked. One delegate, a slender being with translucent skin, rose. Perhaps it is not the humans who should bow. Perhaps it is we who must reconsider. Others nodded, murmuring agreement. Fear was a unifier stronger than pride. Vorkesh's eyes burned with venom. You dare! But the murmurs had become a tide, and even a chancellor could not silence it. On Earth, the news broke like wildfire. Crowds filled streets, staring at massive screens projecting feeds of the Sirius Gate battlefield. Cheers erupted, tears flowed, strangers embraced. The world that had feared annihilation hours earlier now saw its defenders not as victims, but as victors. Children pointed at the skies, shouting about the heroes who had shattered the alien fleets. Old veterans wept, whispering that finally, humanity had proven it could not be dismissed. For the first time, Earth was not looking upward in dread, but in triumph. In her quarters, Drake sat in silence. The glow of Earth shimmered below, the same views she had studied the night before. The victory was real, yet she felt no joy. Relief, yes. Satisfaction, perhaps. But joy was buried beneath the weight of the lives lost to secure it. The door chimed. Hale stepped inside, his shoulders heavy but his eyes brighter than they had been in years. They're shaken, he said. The Council doesn't know how to react. Some will want revenge, but most... He hesitated, then smiled faintly. Most will want peace. Or at least distance. Drake didn't turn. Fear isn't peace. It's only silence. Silence is a start, Hale replied. She finally faced him. You heard what Vorkesh said. He won't stop. He'll plot, scheme, rally those still too proud to admit their mistake. This isn't over. No, Hale agreed. But it's a beginning. And beginnings matter. Within days, messages poured in from alien governments. Offers of trade, alliances, apologies wrapped in cautious language. Humanity, once ignored, now stood at the center of galactic attention. The phrase spread quickly through channels, whispered by allies and enemies alike, the minute's war. It was more than a victory. It was a statement carved into history. The Council predicted ours. Humanity needed less. At the Council, Vorkesh withdrew from public sight. His supporters dwindled, his power fractured. But his hatred remained, festering in silence, plotting vengeance that would simmer in shadows for years to come. Yet even in his fury, he could not erase the truth: the galaxy had changed. On the Resolute, Drake walked the length of the command deck one final time before returning home. Officers saluted, crew nodded with quiet pride. She saw the exhaustion in their faces, the grief for fallen comrades, but also the unshakable fire of survival. Rees approached. History's already writing this one, Commander. They're calling it the fastest war in Council records. Drake allowed the faintest smile. Fast doesn't mean easy. No, Rees agreed. But it means unforgettable. Before departure, Drake addressed the fleet over open comms. Her voice carried across dozens of ships, reaching thousands of weary survivors. Today, they mocked us. They said we would fall in hours. We proved them wrong in minutes. But this victory is not about proving them wrong, it's about proving ourselves right. That humanity will endure. That we will fight not for conquest, but for survival, for each other, for the worlds we call home. Remember those we lost. Honor what they gave. And carry this truth with you: no one underestimates us again. Silence followed, then a single cheer, then thousands, until the void rang with human voices rising as one. Drake ended the transmission and looked once more at Earth spinning below. She thought of the families watching, of the children who would grow up in a galaxy forever changed. She thought of the Council's laughter, and how it had died in their throats. Her reflection in the viewport looked older than yesterday, scarred by battle, but steadier. History would remember the weapons, the strategy, the cannons hidden in the asteroids. But she knew the real victory had come from something simpler: the refusal to yield. She whispered into the silence, words only she would hear. In the end, they laughed at ours. And we gave them minutes.